Okay, we're still here in week 6. This is Bill Warner, and we're going to talk about sales planning. And like we did with marketing, I'm going to take a deeper dive into sales planning and considering the nuances and some of the details underneath the various sales channels that are available to you. So let's get started. So just as a reminder, even though we are in week 6, we're actually still in step 4 and finishing up the business plan. And this final piece is adding further detail to your sales plan that you actually started back there in week 4. Okay, let me paint the forest here before we get into the trees and the moss on the trees and talk about sales channels kind of generally. Sales channels is a fancy sales term meaning the manner in which you sell. And there are 2 forms. Direct selling, which means you sell direct to your potential customer, or selling through, which is indirect as a sales channel. That means you're selling through a third party who in turn sells to your potential customers. Direct, indirect. I think you get the picture. Then for direct sales, you can break that down into online selling, which is good for consumer products, and simple online services where a subscription is what you're selling, or access to information, or a webinar, or an online class of some other kind, or podcast. But online sales are really, really inexpensive because you're actually selling it online with computer software running off of your website. The second form of direct selling is a sales force. What people normally think of as a person selling directly to another person. Now this could be done via inside salespeople. That means people that are actually sitting within your building and selling over the telephone, or going out and having local meetings or inviting people into group meetings and things like that. Telesales, which is over the telephone or video conferencing. Regional salespeople could be deployed within your company. So you have salespeople in all the major cities in the United States or in the regions that you want to be in any way. Well, that's a deployment of a direct sales force. Well, you could also have people outside your company. They're called independent reps, or manufacturers reps is sometimes the term used. Now, these are people not in your company, but are contracted with to actually sell your product as if they were your salespeople. Now, indirect channels means you're going to partner with, under contract, with another company to actually sell your product. They take the form of distributors, which are simply distributing your product onto, say, a retailer or to another company that is going to use it. So they're distributing to your customers on your behalf. Value-added resellers are simply adding value to what you have. Integration partners are people that literally integrate your software into some bigger solution that they have, and they sell to the kinds of customers that you're trying to go after. And of course, retailers are, indirect selling of products that are sold through stores, for example. So these could be storefronts. So there's 2 forms of selling, direct and indirect, and a little bit of an overview. So when you're considering direct sales channel operations, your business could be selling to another business. In other words, a business customer who is a business themselves. That is the target for what you're selling. It's called business to business, or B2B. You probably heard that term before. Or it could be a channel where you're selling directly to consumers, and that's B2C. You've heard that term before as well. I'm now going to take you further into what each of these are and how they operate. Okay, let's go a little deeper now into B2B selling. So in the case of online sales,
to a business, we're talking about pretty simple stuff that is not going to require a face-to-face meeting from a representative of a sales force. That means all of the information about the product or service for this business is available on your website. And the whole process of them actually causing a purchase to happen occurs on the website with no outside human intervention. So as I said before, this is typical of subscriptions to services or other online services where education is provided, for example. Things that are easily explained with online information, videos, demonstrations, descriptions of what these business services are all about. So the second form of B2B is a sales force, of course, where you're selling a product to a business. Somebody's selling manufacturing equipment, computers, servers, software, where considerable amount of time is required in order to get across and have a discussion about and answer questions about what it is that you're selling them. It would just be impractical to try to do that all online. So not only are products sold this way, but complex professional services are sold this way, management services are sold this way. The general pattern is it takes a human to talk to another human in order to accomplish the sale. This is 2 examples of business-to-business kind of selling. Now let's consider B2C selling, business to consumer. In the online version of business to consumer, we're probably talking about personal products, consumables, razor blades, for example, or personal services. All easy stuff to get across, just like B2B. It's simple to understand, can be fully explained and supported during the sales process with software running in the background behind your website, taking the customer through the sales process. They are a consumer, so they're buying consumer-oriented products in this case. A B2B sales force usually means a storefront. You have leased out a storefront and you're selling fashion, you're selling shoes, you're selling hardware equipment, you're selling beer and wine and food. In other words, you're a restaurant. Door-to-door salesmen fit into this category. You don't find many of them these days. But just to complete the example of a business-to-consumer, B2C sale, online and through a direct sales force. Okay, let's get further focused in the indirect sales channel. Now this gets a little bit hairier. So here we are with your business selling your service to a business customer or a consumer customer. First thing that happens is you sell to a business that in turn sells to another business that's going to sell to a business customer. That's B to B to B. And if that doesn't confuse you, I'm not going to go any further, and we're not going to do a three-way here. But business to your business to a consumer would be sold to another business, who in turn sells to a consumer. Business to consumer, B to B to C. So what I'm reflecting in here is this additional relationship you're going to have with this third party that's going to really be the one that sells to your end customer. So let's go through these in a little bit more detail. So let's first take the B2B2B channel. Your business selling to another business who in turn sells to your business customer. In the online case of this, what we're talking about usually are the integration of some service that you have with services of some third party who has added value to what it is, to the services that you offer. So these could be web-based services, they could be integrated business services that you're providing, but you're providing it to yet another company who in turn packages what you have together in a bigger and more comprehensive service offering and sells to the very same business customers that you had targeted in the first place. In other words, you found a way to leverage the abilities of another company who perhaps has better marketing and sales channels and skill than you do, particularly at the early phases of your business, where you simply are integrating your value-added web-based services or business services or any other form of service with theirs, and they're doing the heavy lifting sales to the business customer on the other end. With respect to a sales force, where, again, in order to be able to sell to this third party, who's going to in turn sell your product to your business customer, a lot more is involved in convincing them to take your product or your software or your services to integrate with what they have. A lot of negotiation is required, a lot of convincing is required, so it takes a direct sales set of meetings and negotiations in order to move your product to in a way, or service in such a way, to be integrated with something that they have. It just takes a longer time and a whole lot more discussion to accomplish it. So online sales and through a sales force are ways to get a set of services or products, including software, integrated with someone else who in turn sells for you. Now the case of you're selling ultimately to consumers, but through a third party. So you're actually performing the sale to the third party who in turn takes your product and moves it on through their channels to sell it to the consumers. So in the case of online sales, value-added products or integrated consumables or personal services are, three reasonable examples of something that could be done online. The pattern still exists. This has got to be simple stuff to be able to sell online. But you can imagine in the cosmetics industry that you sell your cosmetic cream or product online on the websites of practitioners who use your cosmetic prospect on consumers and actually sell it retail to them as well. So that simple example you can probably extrapolate to ways that you might want to deliver your consumer product through a third party who may again be better at reaching your ultimate customer than you are. That usually is the value in integrating your products with someone else's solution. So, but again, these can be done online, but with a sales force, very similar. You'd be selling to value-added resellers of your consumer product who add it to a package of other products that are related to yours to sell to the consumer you ultimately want to reach. The distributor and dealer relationships and wholesaler relationships all apply here as well, where you're selling to those kinds of companies who simply move it on directly to consumers, adding their particular kind of value add, and quite frankly, exploiting the mature consumer sales channels that they've already established. It's good for you in that you don't have to develop something you don't have. You use their expertise and their channels. So here now we're back to that funny looking funnel. This case it's a direct sales funnel where qualified leads come in the top and closed sales come out of the bottom. In the online case, this is all happening online, and there is no funnel you're managing. You're simply managing a relationship online, which is a short duration and usually low price, perhaps high volume, but low price kinds of items. Not very hard to sell. But in the case where a direct sales person has to be involved, then there's a process. So it's a process that ultimately reach the closure of the sale, going through such steps as holding the meeting, validating the interest they have in your product or service, make an offer, submit a proposal. Result from that is negotiating the terms of the proposal, present them a contract and get it signed, and you got a deal. And you reflect all this in your customer relationship management database with all the follow-on tasks that are required to take a much more complex process and bring it to closure. Direct selling was pretty straightforward. Channel management, on the other hand, is a big hairy mess and has to be managed very carefully. So to decide upon a particular indirect channel, you establish the criteria for your company and your potential partners. You've got to have a complementary relationship. You can't be starting off day one that you're selling things that are competitive to what they're already selling. You've got to get all of that out of the way first, that the relationship is clear and there's really, really good reason for them, this third party, to be selling your product or service. Then you take into account all of the details of the relationships, the role they play in sales and what the process is, how they're going to be compensated, how they're going to be incentivized to sell. Because salespeople want to make money. So, and you got to get shelf space in their brains and in their daily schedule to have them spend time on your product or service. Pricing is always a long discussion as to what it should be to them, the discount that they're going to get off of retail or your suggested selling price, so that there's enough room for them to make money and enough room for you to retain some money as well. You of course have to avoid channel conflict. So this is a complicated issue that has to deal with the fact that you may be selling your products through many different channels, including direct yourself. And when you're selling direct and you've got a sales channel to boot, therein lies the possibility for a big mess, that each of you are going to undercut the other in price and steal each other's leads, and stuff like that just leads to bad relationships. It could be a very significant mess if you don't do this well. So all of the terms necessary to be very clear on who owns what customers, when and where, and that kind of thing, and how price is managed in these multiple channels has to be cleared up when you define these relationships. And then establish an evaluation process for reaching the sales objectives, and the process metrics that you're expecting that they're going to perform, and how you're going to support them. And then you test it out. We don't go full bore out the door. Let's try a territory. See if we can make this work. You test the channel and the relationship, make sure all of these contractual arrangements are suitable and everybody's playing by the rules of the game. And you do this and to your satisfaction and theirs before you go into general deployment of an indirect sales channel. So that's the deeper dive into direct and indirect selling. But now your class and mentoring session work is to finish your cash budget and your financing strategy, discuss them with your mentor, of course, but discuss also your plan for completion of the business plan by week 9, and update and present your elevator pitch in class. So next session is you're going to complete your sales strategy template that was introduced to you back in week 4. Provide this to your mentor, discuss it in your mentoring session, and update your elevator pitch accordingly. Okay, that's the end of this module. Now, if you have questions, go ahead and contact your instructor mentor, and your choices for doing that are, you can email your instructor at innovationcenter@faytech.edu. You can make a call at 910-678-8496. And you can schedule a meeting with your mentor in the virtual office on Blackboard. You can also post a question on Question for My Mentor discussion forum and have others participating in the answer to the question. It's a good way of sharing information amongst participants. But please note that you should not post a question that is divulging confidential information. That would open up that confidential information to others to read. So be forewarned there. So that's it. Get your homework done. Look forward to talking to you in the next class.